Subverting expectations can be a masterful technique in getting people to remember a twist or moment in your narrative. This can become ineffective if your subversion becomes a standard way to deviate from the main way of telling that story, though. I feel like that's why it is so often our first experiences of these unexpected narrative directions that stick with us the longest. I think this is the reason that Final Fantasy IV's story had such a significant impact on me growing up. It is also why I still love it so much to this day. A love that became deeper after recently playing all three of the first Final Fantasy games that came before this one. This is my second memory that I'm talking about from Final Fantasy IV, and while my first one already subverted the traditional hero setup of the first three Final Fantasy games, today's memory continues that subversion, but also sets us back on a more standard track. Since my Memory Unlocked series talks about moments in games that are often story moments, these videos can contain spoilers for those who haven't played the game. This is still from fairly early in Final Fantasy IV, but they are still story moments that you may not want spoiled, so just consider yourself warned. In the last memory I looked at, I talked about how Cecil was stripped from his rank as captain of the Red Wings and sent on a mission. This mission involved taking an item to the Village of Mist. I first played Final Fantasy IV when it was known as Final Fantasy II in the US, and in that version you were delivering a package. In modern translations that stick closer to the Japanese, you have to deliver a bomb ring. In general, this seemed like a pretty basic mission, something that likely would have been far below the abilities of Cecil and Kain. This mission would wind up being pivotal in the narrative though, as little about the mission is exactly what it seemed. The first part of the mission involved getting through Mist Cave, which acted like your basic first dungeon of the game. Everything seems fairly standard. You're fighting through enemies, and the dungeon even has a boss at the end of it. There is a warning from a mysterious voice to not go any further, but being professional package deliverers, Cecil and Kain aren't going to let some weird voice stop them from making their delivery. The full significance of your mission comes into focus when you exit the cave and head to the town of Mist. Once there, your package or ring, depending on your version, activates and starts destroying the town. As this is happening, you hear a young girl crying over her mother. It appears that the mist dragon you killed as your first boss was a summon of this woman. When you killed the summon, you killed the summoner. And Cecil is aghast at this, but lets slip that they were the ones who were responsible for the death of the girl's mother. As they put all the pieces together, they realize that this was the king's mission all along. They were sent to destroy the village and slaughter the summoners that lived within it. Kain says that the king would expect them to kill the girl as well, but Cecil rejects this. Kain agrees and says that if they're going to defy the king of Baron, they'll need the might of the other nations in the world with them. They try to escape Mist with the girl, but she's not exactly too excited to leave with the guys who just admitted to killing her mother, accident or not. In her sorrow and anger, she winds up summoning Titan, which causes a massive earthquake. This earthquake knocks out your party and the girl, while also causing a landslide that doesn't allow access to Mist from the side that you wind up being on afterwards. When you wake up, you find that the girl is okay, but Kain is missing. Realizing that he needs to get the girl to safety, Cecil hopes that Kain is okay and departs. Cecil heads to the nearby oasis town of Kaipo and rests at the inn. That night, soldiers from Baron come to kill the girl, but Cecil rejects this and fights the soldiers. Cecil is no longer a pawn of Baron and starts to follow his own moral compass at this point. This act of protection gets the girl to open up to Cecil, and the summoner Rydia joins your party here. And this series of events is just wild. A simple delivery mission turns into something far more sinister. You were sent to completely wipe out a village in one fell swoop. This is very counter to many other games I had played up to this point. Your first mission was usually to help someone or do something brave, not cause death and destruction. It solidifies the doubt that Cecil experiences in the intro to the game. Baron, the kingdom that he has served, is not the good guy. They are wicked, and it is here that Cecil chooses to fight against that kingdom instead of for it. This quest is a subversion of what many of the other Final Fantasy games to this point had done, and it ultimately is so much more effective at building Cecil as a character. Cecil is no weakling and doesn't really need to have a quest to prove himself like many of the other characters in previous Final Fantasy games, where they've just been called as the Warriors of Light, or they're doing it to prove that they're the Warriors of Light, or Final Fantasy II, where it's just these kids who are trying to join the rebellion, but they kind of are rejected until they go out and do their first mission. Instead, here we need to see who Cecil is as a character. Is he just a pawn that is going to be used by the forces of evil, or is he going to stand against that evil at any cost? The destruction of Mist Village is the pivot point for Cecil here. It is here that he renounces the evil of Baron and sets forth to stand against their wicked actions. At this point, he has no idea what plan Baron really has and how deep everything goes, but having gone against the will of Baron, he has set himself on a collision course that will produce these answers whether he likes it it or not. While there is a part of me that kind of hates how naive Cecil is early on in the game, I do think this is very understandable though. What person tends to look at their home as the ones in the wrong? Especially since it seems like Baron wasn't always like this, and Cecil himself is very close to those who are in power. Cecil knows that something isn't quite right, but is unable to fully embrace that reality until this event. While he can't change what he unwittingly did, he pours all of his energy into protecting the girl who survived the attack. He's willing to do this even if the girl will never be able to forgive him. Rydia, seeing this in action, must be able to see that Cecil is sincere and winds up becoming a very important part of the narrative herself. And the great thing is that this is just the start of the game. Final Fantasy IV holds so many special memories for me that I love, and this was just one of them. How about you? If you've played Final Fantasy IV, was this a moment that you particularly enjoyed or found memorable? I'd love to hear your thoughts on it in the comments below. That's all for this memory though, so I'll see you next time.